We're back.
They're so back.
Lots of things have happened over the last couple weeks, including trying to get a little bit more techie here. So my new fake background. There's a lot of meetings I've been on where I'm like, dang, that looks like a sweet office. So they had their virtual background set so nice that I thought it was legit and real. But I'm
Are
easily.
bonita fish big?
um, but yeah, trying all sorts of different things. Seems like all I do anymore is marketing and never any sales. Just got off of a interview, so we're starting to try to expand, and so literally doing everything but what I'm supposed to be doing. But hey, that's the life.
Well, that's part of it. You know, gotta, what is it? I got a book. What is it? Fanatical prospecting.
Yeah, I've never read that one. I have heard of that.
Yeah, it's pretty much saying like you need to have a 90-day runway. And like just because you hit your sales goal, now your runway is empty, uh,
Yeah,
type
well, that's
thing.
it. Yeah, but then you add a lot more responsibilities of starting a company and trying to grow that company. Then what are your new sales goals? They're different. So that's the thing that we're dealing with now is kind of not necessarily goalpost moving, but we are setting where we want the goalpost to be. And then sometimes that does change them because we've decided something different.
Yeah.
And like, oh, actually, that was a stupid idea. Let's not do that anymore. And so
Yeah.
it's a lot of just trying to figure out what works, but then you think something is absolutely the best idea of all time, and then you're like, well, that's very expensive, or actually that doesn't do anything at all, and anything in between.
Yeah. You
Tons
gotta,
of
it's,
people out there over promise you like crazy. So it's not just mortgages and insurance and realtors that are calling consumers saying, oh, I can get you the deal of the century, or don't worry about that other guy. It's all about me here. Every industry is that way. Socials is the one right now that's the most. Anything marketing related. Oh, our app is way more inclusive and encompassing than anyone else's.
yeah. It's, so many examples of it because we know a lot of people, so we see behind the scenes of some of the social aspect of it, and it's interesting to see what their outward facing sort of language is, and then when you talk to them on the phone, you're like, oh, okay, that video is
Yeah.
great, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, how much do you spend? How many posts do you make? And then you realize, like, I could just not do any of this and be in the exact same place.
Yeah, but then every now and then you get. I was having this discussion yesterday with I don't remember who it was, um, where it's like you think going out events, meeting people doesn't help. And then one month you might meet two people and you see an instant return from it and you're like, oh shit, maybe I should be doing this. And then you get
But
caught into a 60-day cycle where that doesn't help at all. And so it's really discouraging over and over and over again. But eventually, the benefit you get from all that, it really outweighs the time wasted a lot of times, but it's hard to
yeah.
see that end in sight.
So that's a good reminder. I need to write this down actually, because there's a book. I lent the book out, so I got to write down that I don't have it here in my collection anymore. So maybe one day get that back. But I lent it out to one of my good referral partner realtors because it's called Ninja Selling, Larry Kendall. There's lots of sales books out there, but last place I had worked, kind of my mentor, gave us the book. I think I might have been the only one out of everyone to actually read it through, and I really enjoyed it. I hate books and reading, but I really liked this one. It laid it out good. It was also very nice, double spaced font too, so I could get through the pages. But the it was a lot about that, like what you just talked about. They call it flow. So, like, what's your flow? What's your sales flow, prospecting flow? Like, if you're doing mailers, you spend a couple $100 on mailers and you don't get anything back. Well, that's it. You quit. then you just wasted a couple $100. And so if you're spending money, you got to keep doing it, because then what happens if you didn't do mailers for the next quarter and you learn that someone in the neighborhood where you were mailing just gave their listing to someone else who had a mailer?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that happen. So, and it's the same thing as gambling, right? Red or black, just pick one. Stop
Yeah.
going.
Just
Go ahead. Go
you either
ahead.
always hit on 16 or you always stay. You know, it's one of those things.
And so flow is what they called it in that. And so they use the mailers for real estate agents as an example. Like, if you're doing it, do it. Then you're the mailer guy. That's your thing. Do it.
Yeah. I mean, and
Whatever
a
it
lot of
is.
times,
Don't.
it can dictate your flow. Competition dictates your flow, you know?
But if your thing is your thing and it's been that way for 2 years, you can't stop, because you don't know. And same with socials. It might seem like you're not getting anything, but people are watching. And like, I've had people in real life tell me that they saw all my social stuff, and I was like, "What? Really? You've never liked? You've never commented?" So people are watching. You have to just keep doing it, and it's a consistency thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, that's been my world over the last month. Is just all of those kinds of talks.
I mean, that's been my world has been getting out there, shaking hands, kissing babies, trying to, for lack of a better term, find the whales. And, you know, in my industry, it's a little bit easier to find those because, you know, it's a deal, not necessarily a person. And getting those opportunities, you know, I've gotten probably 4 opportunities in the past 30 days, only one of them, but trying to focus on the positive of, hey, the bigger deals were sent to me. That's a positive thing, even though I only won one of them. So staying that course and not going into the next 30 days of being like, well, that didn't change anything in my paycheck, so I need to stop doing it. But remember, like, oh, I should keep doing that because 4 opportunities will turn into eight, eight will turn into 2 or 3 winning them, and it just snowballs. And me and you both have gone through this long enough to where you forget that pretty quickly. You can forget that pretty quickly just because, you know, I lost a pretty big one the other day just because I wasn't quick enough to it. And not quick enough in the sense of trying to quote it, but I didn't quote it with the right company fast enough and I got locked out. And that company ended up being the best option. And it was like, well, shit, you know, had I done that first, I would have won this. It would have been a great opportunity to do business with a good partner to secure it. But the relationship isn't any different just because I didn't win it. Just explain to them, like, you know, you can't send this to 6 people. You got to send it to 1 or 2 because it's, you know, if he checked his email first, like
And then,
I'm kind of screwed. And, you know, it's not a fault to them, but if they're looking to grow a relationship with me, you got to give me a little bit of an opportunity there in terms of timing. Um, so it can be back and forth of, you know, just because you sent it to me doesn't mean you necessarily gave me the best opportunity.
well, and that's what a lot of our referral partners in the housing world don't quite understand, when they're like, "Why can't you get this done?" And it's like, well, it could be that way, right? We would set up, well, they've called 18 people, and out of those 18 people, someone's willing to do it for free just to get the deal on their books, and that can't be me. So I lose that one. So the more people you introduce, the lower likelihood it is you're going to get a deal done, because someone's going to pull something.
Yeah.
Our internet is super unstable or something here. It's really pausing.
Was it cut it out?
Yeah. All right. Now we're back. We're back. Second clap. uh, don't even remember what we were just talking about.
The importance of,
Oh,
you
just
know,
giving your partner.
continue, yeah, partnerships, sort of, for lack of a
Well, the way
manly term, watering the
a
garden over and
sales
over
sales
again.
101. Yeah, well, that for sure. But sales 101 is the handoff. How are you giving the person to the next person? What's that referral like? Is it just, hey, I gave them your number. I don't know why they haven't called you. Well, let me get their number so I can try calling them at least, right?
Hmm.
And then now you're playing from behind the eight ball. So the handoff matters. How many handoffs you're doing? Are you setting your partners up for success or not? It's good to have competition. but you also don't want to introduce just confusing the client and making them feel overwhelmed because they're getting dozens and dozens of calls.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
taking
actually, go ahead.
I was like taking control of the situation is something me and you've preached to realtor partners for years, you know?
It's not even just us. That's just industry. Like any industry leader will tell you, you got to own it.
Yeah.
But dozens and dozens of calls is a good transition to tell you about DC.
Yeah, there you go.
So well, and we can end with this since the internet sucks today. This between the storms, all the construction, everyone ripping stuff up. Connection's been tough. My cell phone has been really bad.
Yeah, ours has been bad in the neighborhood just because they've been doing a lot of gas and laying in new fiber lines. So we'll get real internet soon eventually.
So dozens and dozens of calls. What do I mean by that? Well, there's this thing called trigger leads. So that's the reason I went to Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago with the Broker Action Coalition. It's a group that advocates for consumers in the housing world. So a lot of it is mortgage based, but these things are simple, nonpartisan topics that just make sense.
Mhm.
So, they fought for veterans. They got that passed in a lot of states where if you have a tax exemption because of your disability status as a veteran, underwriting was not giving that to you during the underwriting process. They were counting the taxes against you, even though you're never going to pay them. So, like, come on, that doesn't make any sense. So they worked with a few different states, and they're still kind of fighting that battle. But now you can have that exemption within the DTI, debt to income ratio guidelines, to not have to count those taxes against you, so you can qualify for that home that we know you qualify for. So just a lot of stuff like that. That's real simple. Like if you're not paying taxes, why are we counting taxes against you?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. And so the one that we're working on now as this group, they've been on this fight for a couple years. I've only recently learned about it maybe a year or so ago, and then slowly but surely started joining some of their calls and networking. And I went to DC with the group this year, and it was really great. I loved it because I'd never been to DC much. I love the political and government kind of world and the ins and outs of it all. And we got to listen to a lot of people who are very used to being on Capitol Hill, and people that work there, congressional staff, actual members of Congress talking to us. So really, really neat experience. And again, this isn't about left or right or anything like that. This you kind of learn that how DC really works. And all people care about is that the group that is advocating in front of them, are they united in their one voice on the topic? And if they are, and it's like, oh, this is not a thing. This is just something that the people need. Awesome. Let's do that. And they're pushing hard for this bill, but this bill is called like a Home Buyers Privacy Protection Act is what it's called this year. It's referencing trigger leads, which it's all about the credit bureaus. And in my opinion, how the credit bureaus are just bending us all over a barrel, doing basically whatever they want, effectively unregulated as private companies. But yes, they're definitely government agencies, but they get to operate as private companies. So no one's regulating their budget, this, that, and the other, and they're just running rampant.
Yeah.
So this is not a part of the bill, but the cost of a credit report pull has gone from under $20 just a couple years ago to over $100. So more than 4 times the cost, 400%, higher, or whatever that percentage is, a very large percent. They're raking in money. And so you have to have your credit pulled to get a mortgage. And in recent years, there's only one credit report company that you have to have pulled, and that's FICO, which is called Fair Isaac Corporation. And their stock has risen over 1,800%. Their little stock is just like this since just before COVID, and really since the 80s. But the way that things have been written has been the same way since the 70s, and it's just outdated. And so what's happening now, because it was all this whole bill, trigger leads. Basically, I'm going on a little ramble here, so let me define a trigger lead. You have to have your credit pulled to get a mortgage. And then it has to be effectively pulled by FICO. The way that credit models are made and how credit reports are made up and consumer versus mortgage reports, that's a whole nother topic that we could talk about for a long time. But you have to have it pulled. There's 3 credit bureaus and there's lots of different scoring models, but mortgage has the one model for the credit bureaus through FICO. And then once you get your credit pulled, which is mandatory for an application to get through underwriting to buy a house or get a refinance mortgage, the moment your credit is pulled, again, have to, they take your information and they sell it to not even the highest bidder, just as many bidders as bid. Here's our price, and then they sell it to people. So your phones get flooded with hundreds of messages, phone calls, texts, emails, anything, because they're literally selling your personal information, your credit score, where you're looking for a home, code on the application, your phone number, your email, all that stuff. They're selling it to bidders of any kind, whoever wants to buy it. And so it's a privacy issue, really. So obviously it's, a lot of people like to use the word harassment because you are getting harassed. And a lot of these people that are calling end up being really mean. Because they're just call center people dialing, and they'll say, the right thing maybe on the first call, and then on the second call is like, why aren't you taking my deal? What are you doing? And then there's also like some predatory practices where these people are calling and they're acting like they're a part of the team that pulled your credit originally. So I'm Clubhouse Lending, right? So if I'm one of these predatory people, I'd say, know you're shopping for a mortgage. I'm a part of the Clubhouse team, and I think we can actually get you a better deal. You want to talk to me about that? So much so that these people that were testifying and talking to folks have a password system in place. Yeah. So like, if you're my client, here's the password. If someone ever calls you about your mortgage and you don't think that they're real, ask them what the password is. So people are getting harassed. People are misleading people from these sales calls that are buying your information without your permission. And that's really the key, is without your permission. So the bill that we went to advocate for literally changes the rule from the 70s, prior to the internet even existing, and then prior now to AI and prior to all these other things that are happening. Right now, the default is you have to go and figure out how to opt out, which is very difficult. And it takes time, and they make it hard for you to go opt out. So the default now is, well, when you're doing the application, we're just trying to get it changed so that you can opt in if you want to receive calls to see what the competition has to offer. That's the change. That's it. So now they can sell your information with your permission.
Right.
Seems logical, right?
Yeah, super logical. And speaking of logic, it seems counterintuitive to logic that credit reports have gone up in price while they're also selling it to anybody who wants to buy it. That would seem like it would offset rising costs to the credit reporting bureau, whoever the company is.
Well,
but
it's nasty. It's
yeah.
nasty out there. And those credit bureaus are unchecked. It's a monopoly. Watch this. All-time FICO stock.
Since 2011? Yeah, I can kind of see it.
Since 1980s. Well, it really spiked in, you guessed it, 2020.
Seems a little weird that a credit bureau is publicly traded.
Well, that's a good question. I don't actually know that. That's FICO. They're the people who make the credit reports. Experian.
Isn't that literally, that's literally the definition of we are the product. Like, you're seeing the real-time value of person.
Yeah. Yeah, they're publicly traded. And then you've got a new scoring model coming in, Vantage, trying to bring in some competition, but it's going to be really slow rollout. Nothing happens in mortgages overnight. You're basically working with Windows 98 and prior type of technology and rules and laws. And these laws, these guidelines are thousands of pages long. and then they might change one thing, and then you're like, wait, what? And that happens every day in mortgage. We're dealing with files right now that are just getting picked apart by underwriters because guidelines are always changing. As the market gets tighter, guidelines get tighter. They don't want to lend you $1 million unless they have everything perfect the way that they want it, their definition of perfect, not yours. You're like, bro, I'm going to make that payment. Obviously, my documents show what you're asking, but it's just not in the format that I wanted. You have it in a Word and I wanted it in a Google sheet, like, well, what the hell? It can be as stupid as that. And so, yeah, it's super complicated. So changes don't happen quickly. But if this law gets passed, it'll be really a good thing. But there's some exclusions. It's a complicated, anything in legislation is complicated. It's going to get, debated, hopefully, and there'll be some things put in, kicked out, all that stuff could happen. But the exclusion that's in there now is that servicing companies will still have the right to call you. If you're refinancing, for example, and whoever services your mortgage right now, when you pull credit, they can call you as well to compete against me, because they should have the right to keep the mortgage on their books if they want it. And even more deeper into it, apparently that helps the mortgage world as well, because they won't tack on more pricing adjustments to rates because these bigger companies will not have to go and find money.
Yeah.
So like if you ripped it away, then all of a sudden mortgages would be unobtainable.
Yeah, it's kind of like I didn't 100% follow you there, but it's kind of there's a bit of healthy competition built into the industry.
Yeah, and they added that through the course of their few years here trying to get this passed. And so, but the other thing, I have done a shitty job of explaining all of this, so hopefully it gets kind of caught in. But basically, your information gets sold without your permission upon a mandatory credit check during the mortgage application process. And then you get flooded with calls, emails, and texts, some of which are predatory and lying to you. And you didn't have a choice. And that is wrong in the United States of America. We should have a choice about pretty much anything that we want to do with our shit. That's the whole premise of being independent. But then but the one other choice is that, well, actually, I do want these calls. I do want someone to come in and undercut the next guy. So click that button.
Yeah. Is the response from the existing process, is their response something stupid like, well, then just don't get a mortgage then? We're not making you get a mortgage.
Yeah, it seems like the competition. Well, first of all, the only people that oppose this are the credit bureaus.
Right. Of
Weird,
course.
right? And
Yeah.
and the special interest of these billion-dollar companies.
Hmm.
Uh, but then their argument against the bill is, well, this is for healthy competition. We need to protect the consumer, make sure they're not getting taken advantage of. Well, you're taking advantage of them. You're making the credit reports higher that they end up paying for, or you're making it harder on mortgage companies because if they pay for the credit reports, which is a choice they can make, or if they pay for a bunch of credit reports up front and then a lot of loans aren't closing because these underwriting guidelines are getting too strict and people are falling out, then the companies have to pay for that. And then if a company's overhead is going up, guess what's going up as well is the interest rates and fees. And now the consumer is getting hit even harder. So the credit bureau has got a lot of ripple effects throughout the mortgage industries because of how greedy they're being.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like they want competition, but you're placing the consumer in the middle of this game that they're not aware that they're in. It's like the ball comes to them and they're like, where'd the ball come from? Why are you calling me?
But that's where that opt-in is the
Hmm.
change. That's the whole change of the bill. Do you want to play the game or not? No. Okay, well then don't. Yes. Okay, well then do.
Yeah.
It's one click of a button. Whereas they're not getting a choice right now. They're not getting a say in how their personal information is being shared throughout the country.
Yeah. I would like to see it's somewhat similar, but it's obviously very different. I would like to see a change in the rules on the insurance side. You can send out mailers, you can send out marketing, but you can't send out a quote that's not real.
Well, right. There's a lot of practices that are never going to get regulated, but then you get
Right.
audited files and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you get regulated. It's like, here, I collect all this stuff. You call me about this thing that's fine and totally good. Here's a dozen things you should go chase down. Leave me alone.
You're right.
But It's a messy world out there. And then look at commercial real estate. They're totally unregulated. They leave listings up that are not even available for years and years. And the owners probably don't even know that their property is still out there being solicited for sale so that someone else can try to collect leads, or they were just too lazy to take it down. Take that person's license away.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Wild West situation on the commercial end for sure.
Why?
Especially as
Everything else is overly regulated and they have zero regulations. Come on.
especially since I've dove into it a little bit more in the last 2 years. Obviously, very surface level, but it seems like it's an owner's always open to selling, even if they're not actually actively willing to sell, because they're like, well, somebody's going to offer five when I only bought it for two. Yeah, I'll hear that call out type situation.
So then why isn't every residential house in the whole DFW, whole United States, have a for sale sign in the yard then? Because if you give me $1 million for my house, I'll take it.
Yeah,
That doesn't make any sense.
yeah. Well, and it's a little different because typically when it's for sale from a broker, when it's listed, it's because they manage that property as well. So like they're in contract for that property, but the
Wow.
stipulations on that can be, I don't know. So like it's just it
But
is
then,
kind of
then
weird.
it should say for lease and not. What about these land ones that they don't even have the listing anymore? It's changed to a different real estate company, but yet their sign is still up from 10 years ago. And you can
Yeah, I
tell too
don't.
because the wood is rotting.
Yeah, I don't know the. I don't.
Get
I
that
don't.
thing off of there.
I don't know the ins and outs of their agreements if there are any or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we know a couple guys that I've seen their signs up and they don't even work together anymore. They're two completely different companies now. You still see their
Well, I was
sign
just going to
floating
say,
around.
I haven't noticed it yet, but I'm sure there's people on those signs that might not be with us anymore.
Yeah. Is your sign still up in Arlington?
I don't know. I don't think so. That's not my call. Yeah, but that's the broker though. The broker needs to take that stuff down if they're not around or change the name or something. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but that's why I went to DC, trigger lead bill. It's not necessarily about, oh, I don't want competition in the mortgage side. It's the whole purpose of the bill is, do you want your personal information sold without your permission?
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a good cause. Glad you went. Your first trip to DC and it was wildly not political. Kind of shocking. Um,
Um, yeah, no one really talked about politics too much. It was just a really, really good group of business owners throughout the country, and it was a really good networking opportunity. And learned some stuff, picked up some resources. Really good time.
yeah. Well, let's wrap it up there. I've got to get out of here, but glad to be back. We'll get back on another schedule. Maybe we can do this again tomorrow so we can backload a couple, um, if you've got time. Um,
We'll see. Fam's in town.
they're
Gonna
always
be
in
in.
town. Why don't they just move here?
Well, who knows? They might try. But there's a little bit of delay in schedule. But I'm scheduled to be an uncle here again in the next 2 hours.
Two, I thought she had like a couple months left.
It's ready to go. Today is the day.
That's right. When did we? I guess it was college football we saw her last.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it'll be a busy weekend here with a newborn.
Well, good luck with that. Um, yeah, we'll wrap it up. We'll get back on here when you got time, but good info on the mortgage stuff. We'll stay ear to the
It's not about mortgage. It's about your
trigger.
personal
It's about your
tax
privacy.
privacy.
We'll yeah, we'll stay tapped into your consumer privacy. Love to hear it, but we'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.